All right, really quick, I just wanted to go over what I think is one of the most slept on physical qualities that you can train in a gym and improve for your body, which is lateral flexion of the spine, okay? So we always think of the core trunk region as a very sagittal plane, meaning we're always trying to get those six-pack abs, you know, if we're looking good on the beach. But if we start to work lateral flexion of the spine, not only can we improve our rotational capacity, how well we breathe, and how well we kind of rotate in sport, we're also going to train more of the obliques, transverse abdominis, and the QLs and erectors that make up the low back, which is going to make us more resilient in the low back and side area, okay? So how we avoid that fear, because a lot of times when we talk about bending the spine, people get very afraid of those terms and afraid of tweaking their back by bending their spine. So here's how I would attack it. So step one, we're just trying to create more space in that region. So our hips come here, our rib cage comes down, and there's no bone in that area. So there's just a lot of dense tissue there surrounding the organs. So a lot of people get very tight in their rib cage at the side of their rib cage into their pelvis. So here, you can use a band. I've just got a cable sack loaded up pretty heavy on the side. And my goal here is to step out and just side bend the trunk without moving the hips to create space between the ribs and the hips, okay? By creating space there, it's gonna allow me more movement options. I'm essentially just getting an active stretch. The cable is pulling my hand away from my hips, and I'm just trying to keep this leg planted in my hip square. So I'm opening up this side of the ribs and simultaneously training a little bit of closure on this side, okay? And this is step one. So I'll just hold here, and I'm gonna use my inhale to try to expand this space. So I'm taking breath in, slow breath out. And this would be step one in kind of just introducing my body to that lateral flexion of the rib cage and pelvis, because I'm trying to create more space in that region. Then from there, I would move to an implement much like a 45-degree back extension or a glute ham raise, something that's going to fix my hips and my feet. So I really like this setup because I can lock my hips against this pad, and I can lock my feet, and that's going to essentially put my hips and lower body into cement, right? I'm fixating into a certain position, and then that frees up my upper body to, again, get a big stretch in that region between my rib cage and hips, and then I can start creating a bit more dynamic movement. So a stretch and a shortening cycle. Okay, the sign of a healthy muscle is the ability to take it through its full range of motion for consecutive time, and that's what's going to actually train the muscle. Isometrics are a great starting point to introduce movement, but then we want to start actually getting that stretch, shortening cycle to train the muscular group, okay? So this is a great option. Body weight, super safe, hips are locked, and you'll find people can be very stiff here. They can only get this far and then come up. So even again, get that big stretch, try to point the elbow away, and then we're shortening up on the way back. Start body weight with those, keep the hips locked, and we're just moving through side to side, okay? You could also do the same thing, set up on the floor in like an elevated side plank, more of a hip dip, but I really like the option of locking the hips in and using that leverage with the feet against the pads to create a bit more space, okay? And then from there, just like any other standard progression of exercise, we can start loading the movement. So there's options to load it on a 45-degree extension. There's options to load it with a Smith machine or a barbell. There's also options to load it just with a kettlebell. And that's kind of the classic move with a standing oblique side bend, okay? This one is gonna be a little more challenging to not shift the hips as I move. So I'm trying to just lock my ankles down, soft bend the knee, reach the kettlebell down to the knee. You can see that opening, squeeze as I come up. Okay, good tempo, good control. Just like any other exercise, we're trying to load the system, load the working tissues through a range of motion that gets a good stretch, an adequate stretch, and an adequate shortening. Okay? So that's how I would kind of introduce more of what I think is the most slept on physical quality that's going to improve breathing, rotation, and just really get that diced up oblique look for your physical qualities. Okay? So give that a try if you're afraid of bending your spine in the frontal plane with some lateral flexion.